Hi Yvonne, my name is Honor and I am one of the photo editors here at Wonderful Machine. Thanks so much for reaching out about your website assessment. I'm really excited to take a look at your work today and wanted to start off with your branding. Right away, your logo jumped out at me as something that I think is really working for you. It's a really nice font choice, nice colors. It's got a ton of personality, feels very consistent with your sort of brand identity. It has almost like a slightly retro feel that I really liked. Could imagine it as like a farm stand sign. All good things. So one thing I would recommend is considering a top navigation. This logo does feel a bit sort of compressed and crowded into this vertical navigation space. And if you moved to a top navigation, you could allow your logo a little bit more space to breathe. And I think it's got such a bold kind of presence. I'd love to see it a little bit larger with a little bit sort of more space to breathe and kind of welcome people into your website. I think that the font choice you're using for your galleries is a little bit basic. It does not have the same sort of bold graphic appeal as your logo. I think it's almost hard to read in this sort of pale gray. I would consider going with a font that's a little bit more bold, maybe even considering one of the blues from your logo as a font color. I think, you want to make a bit of a statement with the fonts as well as with the logo. Like this is part of how you're kind of communicating your style. In terms of your domain name, YvonneBoyd.com is fantastic and is exactly what we'd want to see. However, down here for your email, I see you've got YvonneBoydPhoto@gmail.com. Gmail email accounts are not really as professional. I would strongly encourage you to go with something like Yvonne@YvonneBoyd.com. So getting an email address that is consistent with your domain name. I also see that you've got your email hyperlinked here, which is fantastic. I would encourage you to go ahead and hyperlink your phone number as well. Remember, a lot of people will be viewing your website on a mobile device, and if they want to call you, they're going to want to be able to click right onto your phone number and reach out directly. Moving on to your platform and your template, I think I love the white background. I think it's an excellent choice for you. There's something very clean and minimalist about, your template choice. However, just to say again, I do think that the side navigation is a bit awkward with this horizontal logo. I think that moving to top navigation might be a great choice for you. And it would allow your logo to get a little larger and would just sort of organize the space in a way that I think might be a little bit easier and intuitive for people as they navigate around your site. You're using Photo Shelter, which you had said in your consulting questionnaire you have an interest in setting up a store at some point. So Photo Shelter is a great choice. And, if you're comfortable continuing to work with Photo Shelter, maybe just see what options they offer for a template with a top navigation. Okay, I now wanted to do a quick review of your galleries. I love that you lead with portraits. I think that's an excellent choice for you. Portraits are clearly, sort of at the center of what you do. Your portrait work is fun, it's engaging, and it's diverse. So all good things, and I would recommend keeping portraits as your opening gallery. However, I do think that there is a lot of work here, and it's a bit overwhelming. And there's a lot of diverse work, older work, newer work, black and white, color work, So I think there's room to really tighten the focus of this gallery and to move it, sort of shift the emphasis towards editorial portraiture. One image that jumped out at me right away was this shot, which I think is a great example of what you could imagine as a magazine editorial full-page image. It's a beautiful portrait, but it's also a very strong, clean composition. So as much as possible, I think prioritizing images that feel current and that have that sort of editorial portrait feel will be, your goal with this gallery. You have some work that is in a slightly older style and the processing is different. This is doing you no favors to have this work kind of blended with your crisp, clean, current imagery. So you really want to first step is to take all the older work off and then to sort of, as much as possible, bring a cohesive visual style into the work that you're keeping on this site. 20 to 30 images is your goal for each of your galleries. After 30, a gallery starts to feel really long. Once you get the edit down, you'll also be able to probably consider making these thumbnails larger. Right now, at this scale, the thumbnail view is a bit overwhelming. With a gallery that has this many images, it's understandable why you kind of went down that road. But if you can edit this down to 20 to 30 images and then let those thumbnails be a little larger, I think that's, your goal here. On to your landscapes. Your landscapes are beautiful. This is clearly something I can tell you really enjoy shooting. However, this work is much more fine art and not as commercially viable as your portraits, which we discussed, and your interiors, which we're going to go on to discuss. I think that having it up on your website as is isn't really adding much to your commercial brand or reaching out to those clients that you want to go after. I think over time, what I would recommend here is developing projects through self-assigned work that blend together your landscape imagery, particularly when it has a sort of agricultural feel, with interiors and portraits around particular subjects, perhaps a farm or a vineyard, and using your strength as a landscape photographer to develop more brand narrative work and to tell stories about places and integrate that work into, projects that have portraits, landscapes, and interior shots all sort of mixed together. It will be much more dynamic visually, will show your strength as a storyteller, and let the landscapes actually, attract that commercial work where a gallery just entirely of landscape work is not going to really be that helpful for you reaching out to clients, say, at a vineyard or a farm or something, in that kind of agricultural world. Moving on to your interiors, I think clearly this is another really strong gallery. I like the work that is light and bright in particular. It sort of seems like a combination of some work that's more editorial in its look and feel and work that maybe has almost like a real estate kind of point of view. And what I would recommend, again, our goal is 20 to 30 images, to just prioritize the light, bright editorial imagery and let the rest go. This is a nice shot. Keep the colors very light and bright and keep the mood up. To me, shots like this don't do much for you. The part of it is the lighting. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I think that, pulling work off the site that doesn't showcase a beautiful room that feels kind of intentionally laid out. I would pull work like this off the site. Anything that's you couldn't imagine printed in a Dwell magazine, if you want to use something like that as a point of reference. But in general, I think interiors is clearly one of your strengths, And I would recommend moving it up in the navigation. I would go straight from portraits to interiors. In print, which is your tear sheets, I think, again, there's just a lot here. And I think this could be edited down. You want to, again, just prioritize, the work that's current. And I think, things that look well designed or the full page often, I think, read very well for tear sheets, as opposed to something like these ones that have all the orange at the bottom. I don't think read as well. So 20 images is probably plenty. Prioritizing the well-designed work, the recent work, the full page images. I think this is beautiful. Looks great, like the way the imagery and the design come together. Very nice. Imprint is also a fine name for this gallery. Sometimes people call their tear sheets published, which to me is like just a nice, succinct way of describing what you're looking at. Imprint is totally fine as well, though. Moving on to your projects. This is beautiful work. However, all three of these projects, Moving Water, Rise and Fall, and Stanley Creek, to me are fine art projects. And because they are fine art projects, I think they don't belong on your commercial and editorial website. I think that they're quiet, they're contemplative, they're fine art, and that they have a totally different audience than the work that you would be reaching out to publications and brands. So I would recommend moving this off of your website. You can always keep it as an orphan link to reach out selectively, or to have a separate sort of website for the fine art work. Recent and random work. To me, this is a very confusing title and a confusing sort of combination of images. It's almost like an overview section, but I'm not a huge fan of overview sections either. So I don't think that this gallery, this combination of images, the way it's titled, nothing about this to me has a message that's directed at a clear audience. So I think that you don't need this gallery. I'd recommend taking it off your website and just making sure that the strong recent work is integrated into the appropriate specialty galleries. I think this one we've already seen. You also don't want to have an image appear in more than one place on your website. So I would say just take the strong work here, the recent work, and make sure it ends up in its appropriate specialty gallery. Remove this recent and random work gallery from your website. Okay, about. This is a really fun about page. It's got a great photo of you that's hilarious. I think that there's something sort of fearless about the way you approach your about page, and I really like that. Sometimes people feel very self-conscious about having a picture of themselves or saying something about themselves. I love that you just sort of go for it, and I think that it's really working for you. You seem approachable, you seem like you clearly have a sense of humor, so all good things. Your contact page has a form, and I don't think this form is necessary. I also think because you have your phone number and your email directly under your navigation, you probably don't even need a separate contact page. What I would recommend is maybe just moving at the bottom of your about page. You can have a contact me button if you like. But I don't think you need this form, and you don't necessarily need a separate contact page. Kind of consolidating into your about page, I think, is perhaps the way to go. Your Instagram feed could also be on your about page. You could have, or for under here in your main navigation, you could have the Instagram icon in addition to this gallery if you want to have this Instagram link here. But the Instagram imagery, just to talk about that for a sec, is very landscape heavy. It's not really seeming to me like an extension of your commercial brand, which I think your Instagram, that's the way to sort of think about your Instagram page as an extension of your commercial brand. So the kind of work, and here we're going to look at it just for a second in this view. Again, lots of landscapes. So we're not seeing those interiors. We're not seeing, those really beautiful editorial portraits that you have. Oh, we're getting into some of that. So think of this as an opportunity to sort of showcase, the work, like an extension of your portfolio. This is an opportunity to showcase the work that you want potential clients to see, and to blend imagery together. So like we were talking about with self-assigned work, this is an opportunity to maybe develop a project about a farm or a vineyard and show sort of blended imagery of detail shots of, grapes on a vine, beautiful landscape, a portrait of somebody who works there. You also have the opportunity with Instagram to develop stories and to, use stories to tell people more about yourself. And I think that that's, something you should just feel like you can play around with. If you are having any trouble posting regularly, I would recommend later.com or something like it, using a scheduling app or to sort of help keep you on track, just to drive engagement by posting regularly, and also just to make sure that you're following relevant folks in the industry, photographers that you like, art directors, just sort of, as much as you're able to, just engage and, use it to your advantage. So just in conclusion, I wanted to say, again, I love your logo. I love the clean, white, sort of minimalist feel of your site design. I think that a top navigation would be a really nice choice for you to let your logo expand into a little bit more space with a little more presence on the page, and to move these galleries into a top navigation as well. I love that you lead with portraits. I think interiors should immediately follow your portraits, and then landscapes over time, through self-assigned work. I think, blending together images of, agricultural landscapes with portraits and interiors, could be a really valuable thing for you to pursue. Sort of imagining the whole experience of a farm or a vineyard and trying to blend these different types of imagery together to tell a story about that place. I think that kind of work is very, very appealing commercially, and it's the kind of thing publications love to see, brands love to see. So I think that that's the way to sort of think about this landscape gallery evolving over time. And projects, your beautiful fine artwork, I think does not belong on your primary editorial and commercial website. And recent random work, I would recommend taking off. I hope that was helpful, Yvonne. I really enjoyed getting to know your work and looking at your site today, and look forward to speaking to you on the phone. I'll be able to answer any questions you have at that point. But it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.